Welcome to Painting Made Easy with April May. I'm April May, and today we're going to be painting these cute little ballet shoes. So here I'm starting on the background in a Payne's Gray, just straight Payne's Gray. I like Payne's Gray because it's got kind of a blue tint to it. So it's a cooler color and it's a little bit more transparent than say like a Mars Black. And it doesn't look quite as flat. And I'm making sure to paint the edges of my board. I'm just using a canvas board for this project. I think it's a 9x12. And now I've added some white, titanium white, to the Payne's Gray. And again, this is an acrylic. The finished product is going to be an oil painting, but my base, I like to do it in acrylic to get it all kind of blocked in. And here I'm using my air gun to keep my canvas wet, to keep the paint wet. So my air gun is just full of water and I'm just going over it, and that's just going to help me blend the colors. So I'm not actually airbrushing anything at this point. I will in a few minutes, but this is just to help keep the canvas wet. And you can I got my particular setup, which was not very expensive, for around $200 on Amazon. You know, it's just kind of a cheaper hobby version, and it came with the generator and the gun, and I can't remember what else, but it works for what I do with it. But you can even go get the hobby kits at Hobby Lobby that are even cheaper than this, and I believe they hook to they have a siphon and a tube that hook to, so I'm not real sure how they're all set up. There's several different kinds. So again, I'm just spraying the canvas down with water. Now I'm using raw umber and yellow ochre. And I'm doing the table, blocking it in acrylic paint, and using my air gun to keep the paint wet. And I'm taking the raw umber and making just kind of streaks with my paint, and that's going to indicate the wood grain. I'm not getting real detailed with it, but when you just streak on colors of brown and a little bit of yellow and a little mixture of white added into the yellow ochre, it will kind of give you this wood grain effect. So now I'm just darkening up the top portion of my canvas, still keeping it wet with my air gun. So I guess the portion of me airbrushing the background did not record. So I will try to make another video showing how I did that, but that was all done with a circle stencil, white airbrush paint, and my airbrush gun. So it's kind of hard to see on here, but I have used my line drawing and tracing paper and traced on the ballet shoes to the background. Now at this point I am using acrylic paint, and I'm going to switch over to oil in a little while, but I'm just blocking in the ballet shoes for right now with the acrylic paint. And I'm using a mixture of titanium white, I'm using unbleached titanium white, black, a little bit of the raw umber, and the yellow ochre. for the lighter portions, it's a mixture of probably titanium white and yellow ochre, and for the darker sections, I just add black to those, excuse me, to my mixture to deepen the color up a little bit. And the line drawing portion of this is on my Patreon page, so you can download that and use that to copy onto your painting. The reference photo for this was on Pixabay. I'll have a link to that down below. So I'm just blocking in, you know, the colors, kind of the highlights, the shadows, where I want everything kind of to be. And this is how I do all my paintings. You know, I do them in layers. And this is usually just the first layer is just blocking it in. On this painting in particular, since the background is painted already, it's distracting, so it's important to do the blocking in, otherwise it's real distracting. Say if you were going to just paint a portion of the shoe and just focus on that, I personally have a hard time when the background is already done behind it. It's just, and I'm not worried about my colors. I'm just trying to get my shadows in the right spot, my highlights in the right spot. You know, and when I say highlights, I'm not using white or anything. I'm just using a softened yellow ochre that's been mixed with some titanium white just to get a color in there. I'm not worried about brush strokes or that the color is correct. And the color is a little bit more peachy than what I really wanted it to be. But I'm not even worried about it at this point. And for the majority of this painting, I used a number 8 flat and a number 12 flat and a number 3 round were the main brushes I used in this painting. I don't know if you can hear my dog whining. She's standing. I'm in my studio and I have my door open and I have a split screen. and she has wandered outside and is now whining at the screen. I think she thinks it's time to go eat and is kind of protesting my decision to stay. On the line drawing that I provide, all of the different color segments, you know, the shadows and the highlights are all lined in on that line drawing. Now when I paint, I just paint all over those lines, but I provide that in case you have a hard time knowing where those highlights and lowlights and shadows and everything are. So now I'm doing the background. I'm glazing oil paint over the background, and this is French ultramarine and mixed with the Gamblin solvent-free gel. And it's kind of a lot of the gel with a little bit of the French ultramarine, so that I don't cover up any of my background. I'm just trying to glaze some color over that. So now I'm working on the table. I'm going over it with the same colors that I used in the acrylic, I'm using in the oil. And I'm using Winston and Winsor and Newton, Gamblin, and I think those are the Gamblin 1980 and the Winston Newton oil colors are the paints that I'm using. And I have problems with my wrist. I have lupus, so right now my wrists are real tender. So I'll flip my painting around to make it a lot easier on my hands and wrists. And I'm just making sure that the boards on the table are going at the correct angle. Just kind of following my reference photo. My camera got moved at some point. I'm not real sure when this happened. But now it's kind of at a weird angle. Hopefully it'll move back. I'm not sure if I ever did move it back and get it in the correct angle or not. Hopefully I did. And here I'm just going over with a 1-inch paintbrush to get the brush strokes out of the background. So now I'm using, from here on out, I'll be using the oil paints. And I'm using a stiff bristled filbert here. And I end up not liking it very much, so I end up switching over to a softer bristle. But right there I'm using a number 2 filbert by Master's Touch, which is that synthetic hog hair, so it's real stiff. I'm just trying to define the wood grain, just using strokes. I'm not trying to get too detailed, but I want to, you know, give the effect of wood grain. So when you look at it, that's what you see. But I'm not going into a lot of detail. It's basically just doing strokes of different colors and kind of blending those out. So we're nearing the end of part 1. Please make sure to continue watching in part 2.